All right, we are here live. I am so excited to be here on another H2H chat. This time, I have a panel of people, and they're not just people. These are insane people. No, I'm kidding. These are incredible people that I've come to get to know, and I can't wait for you guys to hear about this because the topic right now is something we were just talking about offline. The topic is the art of sharing in a service-driven world, and in fact, somebody's phone or somebody's computer is sharing right now in a service-driven world. We're on this day
That would
chat.
be my cuckoo clock. That's embarrassing.
That's okay. Let's embrace sharing from your cuckoo clock. So without further ado, I do want to thank, first of all, before we get started, I want to thank Freshdesk for hosting this chat, this video chat. That the topic obviously resonates really well with what they're doing. We're going to get more into that, but before we get started, let these guys introduce themselves. Otherwise, I will start crying as I introduce each one individually, and you don't want to see that happen. So let's start with Alan. Alan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Brian. I'm the Director of Community Outreach for Freshdesk. We are really excited about our growth. When I started with Freshdesk, actually it's been 2 years, in June, we had about 8,000 customers, and now we're well over 40,000 customers. And I'm really excited about this particular chat because we really want to be able to get the customer service conversation outside of just the customer service department. It's really a company-wide issue.
Couldn't agree more, and we will get into that for sure. Frank, you are up next. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, Frank Elias.
If you mind introducing your cuckoo clock, that would be great too.
If I could figure out how to point to it. Anyway, Frank Eliason, many of you knew me from my days at Comcast and starting those initiatives for the past 5 years now. Wow. I've been at Citi, and I'm currently the Global Director of Customer Experience, and I'm also the author of the book, At Your Service.
Fantastic, fantastic, and definitely, I know I've been following you ever since Comcast as well, and there's been a lot of changes since you've been there. I know, and I know we'll get into them both there and where you're at.
I'm making some positives.
Yeah. So, Peter, why don't we go ahead and have you introduce yourself? And talk about who you are. Not, I think everybody knows who all three of you, but just give us a little intro.
Well, Frank's going to do that whole thing where he gets introduced to this book right next, so I'm just going to do, hi, my name is Peter Shankman, and so I'm Peter, I just put all my books right behind me. They need to be much bigger, so I'm going to do that. I'm Peter Shankman. You guys probably know me from starting something called Help a Reporter Out, or HARO, which changed the way journalists and sources work with each other. Over the past 4 years, I've spent the majority of my time writing 2 books and focusing on customer service and the art of actually being nice. I'm a keynote speaker and I'm a talking head on television a lot. And when I am not doing all of that, I spend the majority of my time on an airplane or chasing after a very highly caffeinated, it would seem. But we don't give her caffeine, but I don't know why she is. Highly caffeinated 2-year-old daughter. But when you think that she comes from my loins, it kind of makes perfect sense. So, good to be here.
You know, there are drones for that. I just wanted to...
There are indeed. Believe me, I'm investing in them. Go get her and bring her back. And they just it's awesome. I love these things. Modern technology, man. Glad living in the future.
Guys, let's talk. Let's kick this off with what are you seeing that is innovative, that's new, even just within the last few months, that you're seeing. Maybe it's either disrupting or it's something new in the customer sharing space, the customer service space. Tell me what you're seeing that's kind of changing. Maybe things that we've been talking about for a while and they're finally happening. Actually, Frank, why don't we start with you?
Start with me. What I'm actually seeing is a few things. I'm seeing a lot more companies getting involved in the customer experience space and actually start to really look at it much more holistically than they have in some silo in the past. I think those are good things. On the negative side, we're seeing technology all over the place, and it's kind of like the early days of social media where you have all these tools that are going to give you the world, and at the end of the day, they're not delivering because you're not fixing what's broken, the culture, the way you think about things, the way you do things. And so companies aren't always getting the value out of those tools. So it's finding trusted partners, such as Freshdesk, and other partners that have been doing this for a long time that really know what's going on. Stay away from the, snake oil salesmen. And, I think that's going to be a theme going forward. And then my final point is where I see things at, I'm starting to see people embrace bringing the humanity back to business in the customer experience space, which has been missing. That's been the #1 problem. I think companies have attacked it from a process and a technology perspective, missing the human perspective, the people aspect.
I forgot to tell you guys that anytime you use the word human, and I think Frank knows this, and that's why he actually said, anytime you use the word human, you will get a clap. But here's the thing. We are up to 10 humans in a given session, and Jay Bear, Joel Comm, and a few others have beat the record before. We are up to 10 humans. So if you guys get 11 humans strategically placed throughout this, you will take the title. Okay, sorry, Frank. Back to you.
No, I think I covered it, but it's all about being human, so that's all I'll strive to be.
Thanks, man. All right. No. Alan, why don't we jump over to you? What new things, new innovations are you seeing in customer service?
Well, I think a trend, maybe not innovation, maybe as a result of innovation. There's a concept that I heard recently called intelligent disobedience. The fact that we have so much in the terms of customer self-service and knowledge base, people can solve a lot of the easy problems. So now it's up to the human agent to. I don't get any claps for that.
Oh, you slipped it so well in there, I missed it.
But the problems that agents are facing are more complex. So intelligent disobedience is, imagine a guide dog for the blind, and he's crossing the street, and the blind guy hears that he can cross, but the dog doesn't move, and he kind of gives the dog a nudge, and the dog doesn't move, and then suddenly he hears a car come through the intersection. So even though the light was green, the dog saw that there was a car coming through the intersection, so he was smart enough to know to not obey his master. So the challenge I think that customer service people are facing now is that the problems that come to that customer service person are more complex because the easy ones are being handled.
That's a great idea, and I agree with that. I think it's certainly it's getting harder, and it shouldn't be.
So what that means is that it requires more empowerment for people who are trying to solve the problems, because the solution is not going to be cookie cutter.
Great.
And that's a challenge for management to try to help them do that. And I know Frank's talked about that before. So.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's go over to Peter. What are you seeing? What kind of new innovations and disruptions in customer service are you seeing? I think we lost Peter. I don't think he wants to answer his.
Hang on. I hit the wrong button. There we go. Am I there?
There he is.
Okay. Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
I think we're getting how to disrupt now.
Yep. No, I hit the wrong button. Okay. So here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the concept of 6-7 years ago, we used to see companies say, well, it's okay, we have a Twitter account, so we'll just wait until we screw up, and then we'll just placate them on Twitter. And I always used to say that was the equivalent of lighting my apartment on fire, because it's cool, because the fire department will come, and they'll put out fire. Personally, I just prefer my apartment not to catch on fire. What I think we're starting to see now is we're starting to see companies understand that the humanization of specific roles. For instance, I don't want to be treated as a nobody. I don't need you to go out of your way and kiss my ass when I take a flight on an airline that I have no status with. But I want to be smiled at. Okay? I don't want to have an anal probe from the TSA. I want to get a hello and welcome to our airline. Something that tells me that I exist in your eyes. And what I'm finding with the companies we're working with, including not only airlines but airports, hotels, and restaurants, things like that, is that the majority of the customers do not need anything more than a acknowledgement that they're real people, and that they're not numbers. And what I'm starting to see show up the most, and this thrills me because it makes it a much easier sell to corporations. Customer service does not have to be a cost center. It can be a profit center. The simple act of doing, look, if we expect to be treated like crap 99% of the time, all you have to do is be one level above crap. I go in to give these keynotes, and I'm like, guys, I don't want you to be good. I'm not going to go all Tony Robbins here and ask you to release your inner tiger. I just want you to suck 1% less, and your customers will love you. And so we're starting to see companies understand they don't need to deliver steaks to the airport, right? But a simple smile and a, hey, heard through the grapevine it's your birthday, here's a free drink, is, with the tools we have now, all the company needs to propel them in the stratosphere. And it's so nice to finally start to see that happening more and more.
That's great.
Relationship hub.
Yeah.
Yeah, simple as that.
Every time you talk, Frank, I'm holding up this goddamn book.
I need a book. Brian's
right.
I feel left out. I don't have a book.
Get Shareology out.
If I were in a hotel somewhere without my own book, I would have it right here. And what's funny is I wrote a book on human to human. Where the hell is that book? So let's talk about scaling, because I get what you're saying, Peter. Suck less. All you have to do is suck less, and Frank and Alan about just being able to say things that matter and the whole humanness of the whole thing. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but what I want to dig deeper into, how do you do that with everyone? How do you do that with so many people? And I'm not just talking about a small SMB mom and pop shop. I'm talking about, here I'm staying at the Hyatt in Tahoe, and they've probably got 2,000, 3,000 people staying here. I mean, they're doing an awesome job. And I think Peter wants to say something, so actually I'm going to let him go first.
You're looking at it the wrong way. You're looking at it like every single thing needs to be this grandiose gesture. Okay, we worked with a company that I'm not allowed to name, but I worked with this company where we basically taught the front desk people who were working at the front, the entryway, to just notice 2 to 3 different types of body languages, which basically characterize 90% of either they had a really shitty flight, or they're not sure about traveling on their own, or they're just stressed about a meeting, or whatever. 90% of the time they were right. All they had to do was recognize that and show less than 1% empathy, and all of a sudden everyone felt like, oh my God, they treated me so well, and they couldn't put their finger on why they got treated so well, which was the best part, because that made their whole overall experience awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about doing billions and billions of things to every single customer. I'm talking about just being a little better of a human being to these people. That's where the beauty of this comes from.
But it starts with empowerment of your employees.
Exactly.
It starts with, and I'll actually say treating your employees right. And if you look at some of the worst-oriented service companies, they typically treat their service-oriented employees horribly.
It's the worst thing they can do.
Yeah. And so if you treat your employees right and you empower them to then treat customers right, most people are in these jobs because they want to treat people with respect and like them.
Everyone asks about Ritz-Carlton, and everyone says, oh my God, how come Ritz-Carlton has all these amazing people? Because they only hire for people. They understand that you can teach anyone to fold a bed sheet.
Give me an example, Frank, on how to treat your employees right in order to help them scale. Give me even just one or two.
Well, we just got, the Ritz is a great example. Their employees are empowered with a budget, their own budget. I forget how much money it is, but it's like $1,000 a month or something along those lines that they can spend as they wish for customers. And so they could do things, whether it be upgrading them or doing something with that money. And you don't even have to do it at $1,000. Years ago, I worked at a small credit card company, and they're now out of business, which is not my fault, trust me. But one of the cool things we did was we empowered our employees to actually send flowers, to send candy, or actually just send, believe it or not, I had to go to the store, to a Hallmark store, and I would buy cases of Hallmark cards, not branded, no branding at all, literally Hallmark cards, and we would give them to our representatives, and they could choose whatever customers they wanted to send a card to, they could do it. And the card was never branded the company. You know what? That's how you do it. It's not these grandiose things. It's not that hard. But you know what? Companies try and make everything a process. You know what? It's not necessarily a process. It's here's some cards.
Yeah.
Guess what? People naturally know what to do with them.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
What for there are the companies like the Ritz that do this wow and really go over the board. But I think for a lot of businesses, it's about managing expectations. If I tweet out there, what are my expectations that how quick a response I'm going to get? And the problem is for most businesses, if they don't set expectations, then the customers set them for them, and they will probably fail to meet them.
No, they do set expectations, and they set them all wrong. Yep. You know, the problem. This is the number one problem. Look at the marketing of companies, especially ones that people don't well love. You know, they send out in their marketing material how much they love their customers and all this, and then you have to pick up the phone and call them, and you go, "Oh my God!" You know, you don't. So they're setting expectations, but they're setting them in the wrong direction. Then when the customer actually needs to do whatever it is, they're livid.
They're writing checks, their customer service.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's a funny, great story about that. So I forgot my glasses. I was flying to Chicago about a month ago, and I forgot my glasses. And I tweeted out to LensCrafters, "Hey guys, I bought my glass with you a year ago. Any chance I could get back in Chicago? Can you recommend a store where I can go near my hotel?" And they replied almost immediately, "Yes, you can come to this store. We have time at 4:30." I'm like, great. And of course, the social sphere went H2O. Of course, because he's Peter Shankman. He has followers. And I replied, I wrote a blog post about them, like, actually, the stupidest thing LensCrafters could ever do is treat me special publicly and treat everyone else like shit.
Yeah.
That is the stupidest thing they could do. And sure enough, if you go scroll down through LensCrafters stream, anyone who asks LensCrafters a question, they respond almost immediately, almost 24/7. It's brilliant. Four Seasons does the same thing, and the Four Seasons has hotels around the world, and they have people who handle their social media in shifts. So it's different hotels in different parts of the world, so there's always someone online. And it's those little tiny things. You don't need to be awesome. You don't need to admit just the fact that LensCrafters said, you know what? Yes, come on in, we'll get you your glasses. We know what it's like to be blind and to be stupid and forget them. That basic premise right there. They don't need to do anything else. I paid full price for those glasses, and I was happy to do it.
Yeah.
Brian, I also think they conflate resolution and response. You can't always control how long it's going to take you to fix something. But you can control how quickly you can respond to something, and that at least shows people that you care.
Alan's 100% right. That's 100%. You don't need to get 99% of the time. The customers don't actually want something special. They just want to be heard.
Yep.
They just want to know that I've been sitting on the damn tarmac for 3 hours. Tell me that I exist in your world.
Right.
United did that. Someone someone tweeted hate flight delays, and United took a picture of a little jet on their desk, a little rubber jet on their desk, and said, "We hope you're up in the air soon." Just the simple. They can't fix. It's Newark Airport, for Christ's sake. If it's between April and November, you're going to be delayed. That has nothing to do with them, but they still found a way to make it nice.
So let's you guys just spawned all kinds of questions that are off my questions, which is great.
Hey, you picked the panel, man, not us.
I think the one thing that I think we should stay on track with, the thing that that resonates across the board, and I'm not going to give myself the clap because that would be weird, and I can't believe I just said that out loud. But what I would like to talk about is
just move on.
I'm trying.
That's why we can't have nice things, Brian.
So, how do you keep a brand, and not even a brand, but when you're responding? And let's take for instance when Fitbit had their wristbands all leave a mark and burn holes in people's wrists, and I think they handled it actually as well as they could. But that's my personal opinion. How do you respond in a human way to massive amounts of a challenge? I mean, you have no choice but being reactive. You didn't plan for this. There's nothing you can do about it. What do? What's the plan there?
Well, Brian, you could be proactive. If you're proactive in terms of being truthful, transparent, and developing trust, then when you have that challenge, it's less reactive. It's just in tune. This is what happened. You know us. We'll make up for it, because we've already laid the framework. So the proactivity part of that is actually, doing that ahead of time.
And more often than not, your customers, why am I pointing with a fork? More often than not, your customers will actually be the ones who are defending you, and will be the ones saying, oh, you know what, I trust them, they've helped us in the past, it's okay. And that's what you're really going for. That's a zombie loyalist. You're going for those people who you've treated well in the past, who know you, who say, you know what, everyone's entitled to a screw up. No one's going to bitch. 99% of the time, people are not going to bitch about you for screwing up. They're going to bitch about you for how you respond.
Yeah, but the problem that we have is we're still doing a lot of old school PR. Let me try and sweep it under the carpet. There's nothing to see here. And that's what's destroying companies, and that's why they get continually bombarded. Whereas if you're open about it and you say, look, here's what's going on, we're working on it, people will actually applaud you for that. It's not easy, and but if you do that, and I think Fitbit did a bit of that. They kind of said, look, we're looking into it. We're trying to understand this. And I think if you do that, people will trust you. But the problem is it's that old school PR method that most companies still do.
Frank, I don't understand why you and I haven't started a consultancy yet, but that's a story for another time.
Hey, I'm thinking about it, so did I just say that publicly?
Oops. LTMC.
Whoops.
But
Strangest chat ever.
I can't overemphasize, though, that when people, that reactive, that moment of crisis, it's different if you've not been truthful with your customers in the past and you have a history versus if you start doing it today. You can do that today with everything. I mean, I go back, this is a long way. Dell had a problem with their motherboards back in the early 2000s. And they didn't recall them. They just, if you called support, they'd check your motherboard and then they'd do that. But they didn't do a massive recall, and it was a mess, and it made Dell look really bad. Intel had a problem on one of their boards. They did a voluntary recall. It cost them $1 billion. So who do you trust more going forward? That's the proactivity. It's getting ahead of the stuff. Not waiting to get caught.
Let me give a perfect example that literally just happened to me. I have multiple Apple computers, and they get me every time. But that's a whole other conversation. But one of the reasons I am dedicated to Apple is because I've had some incredible service experiences with them. But I want to give you one that just happened. I have a computer. It was built. I got it in 2012. Guess what? Computers warranties are what, a year? Outside the warranty, I get an email the other day, and it says, "Hey, you know what? A few of these computers, including yours, the hard drive didn't live up to our expectations. Please bring your computer in, back it up, bring your computer in, and we're going to replace the hard drive for you." It's out of warranty. They had no reason to do it.
Right.
But it's the right thing to do. Most other companies don't do the right thing. That's where the problem comes in.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree. So, we're all in agreement that it's great, to be proactive, and I get the 1%. But now let's talk about the VIPs. Let's talk about the people that actually really did earn the points. That really did. I mean, I'm VIP on Delta and Hyatt and a whole bunch of places, and I expect certain things because of them, and maybe that's just me, and I expect a lot. but I don't think I'm alone. I think the people who earned their statuses are expecting more.
Yes,
and how do you keep? Okay, but how do you keep that level without leaving out the people who did not earn that? I mean, you don't want to leave them out, but at the same time, you want to treat your VIPs like VIPs. And so where do you guys stand on that?
Can I? I mean, I don't want to. Okay. I think that one of the key things of understanding is that if you treat every customer well, not great, not free stuff, awesome, but just well, decent like human beings, then the majority of customers are not going to have a problem when you really kiss the asses of the VIPs. And I think the best example I can give of that. So I love United. I'm loyal to them. I'm global services with them, and I know that a lot of people have issues with them. And to their credit, they are making changes. But no, their customer service, in the past has left a lot to be desired. And if they're going to take care of me really, really well, I have, it's not okay that they don't take care of everyone at least decently. But on the flip side, I tend to side with companies, not just airlines, not just United. There are a lot of asshole customers out there. Okay, and I'm sorry, if you're paying $129 to fly from New York to LA, you're lucky you get a seat. You know, you should be under the damn bus for that at $129 to fly in a pressurized tube 3,000 miles and go from coast to coast in 5 hours. So no, you don't deserve an upgrade, and you don't deserve food, and I get that. But that being said, you deserve a basic smile and a hello, welcome to our airline, like any other human being. So I think that's how you master it. The people in first class who are paying $5 for the ticket, yes, they deserve to be treated at a higher level than the people spending $100. But the people spending $100 still deserve to be treated with empathy and dignity and respect, and that's where I think we're having that distance.
I love the passion that Peter brings out, such the humanity to see in action.
It's just ADD. It's nothing more than ADD. Nothing more than ADD.
But what I'll say is, I don't think there's a problem with having differing levels, and I think many organizations do. But it depends on how you define that. If you define that as, oh, this is an influencer, or you define that as a VIP, as a politician, or I have issues there, because that's not something I could strive for necessarily. It's not something. It's treating someone different to put a patchwork out there to make it seem like you're great, when in reality you're not. So I think it's how you define it. And I think companies that make the mistake are the ones that go after like those people they deem influencers, whether they do business with them or not. And I think that's a problem.
No, I agree with Peter. Yeah. I think if you raise the baseline experience to one that is comfortable and acceptable for most people, then you have less of the jealousy, I guess. Speaking as a 99%er as opposed to you guys who are 1%ers. That's really the key. If the baseline experience is so bad, everybody's going to get upset about anything that anybody's going to get that's a little better.
But you know what? I'll go a step further. When I fly, and I do this on every flight I take, whether it's United or if I have to fly another airline. I stop at the airport on my way to the gate, and I buy a little thing of jelly beans, like a $5 thing of jelly beans, and I give it to the lead flight attendant. And I'm like, here, this is for you and your guys on the trip. And it doesn't matter if I'm on United or in Delta. If I'm sitting in 1A or 34D, I will be treated well. Okay, because they so expect it's a two-way street. I'm sorry. Yes, we're paying for service, but you know what? The people who work for the airlines, people who work for hotels, they didn't sign on to be treated like shit by assholes every day, and I have a problem with that too. If you want to be treated well, you have to come on. It's a 50-50 split here.
I totally agree with you, and I've worked in service for years. Trust me, I've dealt with a lot. But I would also say, the airline industry is a great example. We shifted their job to be security as opposed to service, and so that's not just that's the airline's fault. That's our fault as consumers for allowing this ship. You can get into a number of facets on that, but ultimately. It is about treating them right, and it's also about the businesses identifying what they really are. And if you really want them to be security, then don't be upset when the service is not up to speed.
I'll go out of the airline business. You want to have your order at Starbucks taken the right way immediately? Get off your goddamn phone when you're ordering.
Yeah, I just spent a moment in the elevator. There's 10 of us, and one person was on the phone. And I don't think she realized we were all on the phone call with her at that moment. So my question to all customer service and all brands, and this is a question to you guys, why don't brands have thank you departments? Why don't they have departments that go out and thank people before things happen and spot trends and use this, okay, I'm going to say it, big data, to be able to thank people for their service, for their loyalty, for their whatever. Why don't these thank you departments exist? Or am I off? Should we do something else?
There are loyalty departments, and there's also marketing initiatives that go into that. What I will actually say is probably a bigger portion of the problem to that is we don't connect it to all our operations and how you do things. So, yes, these airlines, they have rewards programs. I work for Citi. We have our loyalty rewards program. And so they kind of view it as that. And it's a very process-oriented view. It's not viewing it from you as a human being would think about it. And that piece of I'm trying here. But that piece of it is, something we really need to work on, and it can't be some marketing message that pushed out. It has to be something that's lived, and I think that's a challenge.
Yeah, I think it's also about what you measure. If what you're measuring is, if a thank you is one of those things that you're measuring, I don't remember what you tell the story about. Who was it who gave the money out to their employees?
Ritz did that. Ritz gave one. Oh.
So, I mean, if you're measuring that and you want to make sure if all your employees have given out all their money, that's a way of So if you're measuring just first call resolution or, how quickly it closed the ticket or that kind of stuff, and it's not part of the what you're measuring for the sales department or for the marketing department, or service delivery or customer care, whatever it is, then if it's not part of that equation, then they're not going to do it because they're not being incented to do it because they're only getting paid to do something else.
And that's also the key. If you're hiring, there's still this mentality out there that says customer service hire from bottom of the barrel, and I just have such a problem with that because if you're the first face of the company and you are the first face of the company, why in the hell would you hire someone? Why would you deliberately go out of your way to hire the lowest common denominator? It's not actually saving you money. That's the killer. It's not actually saving you money. It's actually costing you more.
It does, but this is why call centers have 30% turnover typically or more. Some have 60% turnover, and they find it normal. This is how the service world actually operates, and that's why I always have a problem. They always call it operations, and that's all it's about reducing costs. And we have to get away from that mentality.
Or my other favorite one is customer retention, which is where you get sent when you complain too much and you threaten to move to another. Then, we got to send you.
Well, you guys saw when I live tweeted my attempt to cancel Time Warner Cable. It was like a 2-hour process, half a bottle of tequila, and I had to speak to 14 people.
You're about to throw me back.
It was ridiculous.
You're about to throw me back into. Actually, I'll bring up a story. Actually, shout out to Shell Israel. Had an issue this past week where he wanted to cancel his Comcast service, and he, it's really funny if you think about it. We train our customers. He did not want to call them. He wanted to do anything but call them because he just didn't want to go through the rigmarole. He tweeted them, he did all kinds of things, he tried to do everything on their website, didn't allow you to because why? Retention, they want to talk to you. Well, that being said, kudos to Comcast because when he did call, he actually said it was a great experience he's ever had with them. It was no problem, and very easygoing about it. So I'll give them a cheer for that. There's actually while I'm speaking of Comcast, it actually caused me to look at some of the things that they're doing, and I'm not going to sit. I was very outspoken. Earlier this year and last year where they had some issues, I became outspoken about it. And but since then I've noticed some changes that are kind of interesting. So I saw a blog post they did the other day. They actually have a blog dedicated to customer experience and what they're doing. Most of it, and this is give a shout out to Josh Burnoff and his no bullshit blog. A lot of it comes across that way. It's PR-ish. But that being said, I found this one post where someone gave them feedback. And they actually talked about this problem that they had very openly, and here's what they did about it. Not only did they do that, they actually talked about that they gave her a $20 credit for every month for 6 months. They've never done that publicly. And, so I think companies are starting to understand that. Now it's a question of whether it's long-term. I see a lot of their messages are more PR-related, but I think they're going in the right direction today. And so this is what companies have to think through, and it's very difficult. It's against the culture.
Look, I'll just add to what Frank said. The only thing I would say is that I think that at the end of the day, it is very difficult to turn a company around. They're not speedboats. They're really, really large luxury liners, and they don't turn around easily. If you think about, I remember working at America Online in the 90s, the concept of getting any major company online in like 1995 was unheard of, and then let alone the fact that Sears actually owned CompuServe, which I always think of a Prodigy Red, which I always think is a great story. One of the biggest companies out there, was one of the most forward-thinking. But so it took a while, right? And by 2001, if you didn't have a website, oh my God, you were gonna, the world was over. So I think we're at that cusp where consumers have the control. They have the ability to talk more than they ever have before. The sewing circle has come back online, where people can talk about the company in real time as it's happening. And the concept of friending, fanning, following, and liking is finally going away. I don't need to like your business. If I eat, there's a Mexican place near my apartment. I eat there 3 times a week. How can you tell? Look at me, okay? So it's pretty obvious that I'm there all the time, and they know that, and they treat me well because I go there. I don't need to like them. So as that goes away, When I go to Google and say, show me, when Frank goes to Google when he's in New York City and says, show me a Mexican place near me, oh, Peter goes to this place all the time, you're friends with Peter on Google+, whatever, you should go there. It's going to be automatic. As companies start to realize that, which they are, we're going to see, I guarantee you, the rebirth of customer service, and it's going to be awesome.
You know, Brian, we did a challenge on your Shareology site, and we asked people to nominate not businesses but people, humans, who are doing good quality customer service. And I think that what businesses have to learn is that in the end, it is a human-to-human connection, that there's a person on either end of it, and they need to connect. I'm not sucking up. This is, cause look, I ate at Carnaby Burger in London, and one of the guys who was sitting with us, they wanted to charge him like $5 extra for a little bit of barbecue sauce, and we said no, that's ridiculous, and we didn't get it. So I tweeted it out, and they got back to me and said, I'm so sorry, that happened. In fact, we looked at that policy and we think it's ridiculous and we're going to get rid of it. And they've just made a fan out of me, and it was just basically, I understand that doesn't make sense. That policy doesn't make sense and we're going to change it. So that's not just an automaton saying, sorry, that's our policy. You know, if they would have said, sorry, come in and have a free beer, that's one thing. But they said, no, we recognize it, that it's not something that makes sense and we're going to change it. I thought that was a really big deal.
It's a much more powerful statement if you follow up like that.
And this was a small business, so it's not just the big companies. This was a small business doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, I'm gonna ask a couple of questions from in the audience. Am I echoing? Let's see here. How's that sound? Good?
Yep.
Okay, good. So here's a couple questions from people that have. We're going to switch over to some people in the Twitter audience. Our friends. J.S. Gilbert asked, where would you absolutely not use a tool, and how do you see? What do we need to see evolve in future tools? And actually, I think, Alan, why don't we start with you, since not because you're a tool. I mean, you have a tool.
Ouch.
We're good friends.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, my internet connection couldn't handle that statement, Brian. It just jumped on it. Gee, I don't know where to start with that.
Where do you? Let's start with that.
Well, to me, I look at the purpose of tools is to help us do a better job. It's, you know, automation, as I talked about in the beginning. It's okay to put. This is a Google age. People want to go find their own answers. That's great. But when it comes down to the actual connection, automation should help, and tools should help that agent do a better job. It should help me give you better context. I look at mobile. One of the things that we do on mobile is in-app support. So when that person connects from the app, I have the context. I knew the first thing I always ask is, well, what did you do before you had the error? Well, that's something that the tools can help you. That should already be sent through. That should be part of the context you get as part of that ticket or whatever it is that gives you that information. So the tools should be there to help with that context, to make it easier to get to talking about what the real problem is and then working on the solution.
Great. Frank, how about yourself? How do you use your tools in your organization, and where do you see the tools evolving?
I think tools themselves. I think I said early on. I think we have a challenge with tools. There's everything coming out that fix everything under the sun. I think you're going to see some consolidation of those tools, but I think you're also going to get much more abilities. I think we became so processed that we can't get to the data we need and how to utilize that. And I don't necessarily know. I think there's data scientists really working hard to bring that data to life. And it's going to challenge how we do things. It's going to challenge some of the rules for privacy that we have in, say, the EU. But those things, if done right and not done to hurt people but help people, I think people will applaud. It's about creating experiences that are for that person, that individual, and recognizing us all as humans. And I think that's been a huge problem.
There was a human there, Brian.
It was echoing.
But what Frank said is a great point. You know, the first technology we had was putting more layers between us and the answer. It was putting, you know, it was the call trees and all that kind of stuff. And that was supposed to make it, they always said, you put in all these answers so you get to a person that would be able to answer your question, but then when they get there, they start asking you the same questions over again. So that's not using the technology you have.
Well, it's the same thing as when I go to the, why do I keep hearing the echo? Who's echoing? I don't know who it is. But it's the same thing when I go to the, when I call Verizon or when I call whoever, and I ask for, they ask me for my cell phone number, you know, and I give it to them. And then they connect me to 2 other departments, both of whom ask me for my cell phone number. You know, it's the basic little things that we keep screwing ourselves out of. You know, when I call American Express, they've already matched my number that I'm calling from to my account. And they answer the phone with American Express, and I press travel or concierge or whatever, and they go, hello, Mr. Shankman, how can we help you? And that's the highlight of my life right there. You know, I have a very boring life, but I mean, that part right there is incredibly exciting. Just the fact that I don't have to go through the whole process of repeating my card number is a win.
Yeah, but the future is you shouldn't have to be selecting, you know, you want to go to this department. You should.
No, agreed, but we're not there yet. Let's, you know, baby steps, man.
Let's get the basics right.
Seriously.
But it's all about simplicity. You know, why do in this day and age, why do we need an IVR to tell us press this, press that? You know, let's just get the call to a person. You know, stop trying to trap people, which is really what IVRs were meant to do. You know, people don't want to be trapped. They went on your website to take care of that type of stuff. Let's get rid of that stuff and let's make it easy to get you to the person you need to get to. You know, so we have to think through a lot of those things very differently than we do today.
Here's another question from Andy Golden. How do you recommend companies with older or old school managers migrate to a newer approach to customer service?
You have to drag them into it. And what I mean by that is, you know, I always say customer experience is a department that should not exist. It should be ingrained into your culture throughout your organization. But the fact is it's not. And so that's why it does need to exist today. You know, so ultimately the #1 metric for a customer experience department is don't have your department. #1 metric. With that being said, I think we're all humans, and what's going to drive that change in us is when we connect in a human manner. When someone tell a story, bring the customer's story to life. There's no leader I've ever met in any organization, including the cable company, who wanted to create a bad experience for customers. They just didn't necessarily know that. So you have to be able to tell that story and bring them into it. It's a lot of psychology, but if you do that, they will change, and they'll be the ones driving that change, not you.
I love it. That's a great response. Either of you two want to jump in, or you want to?
Yeah, I'll take it a step further. What I do when I go to big companies and I talk to their CEOs, I talk to their heads of departments, things like that. I just simply ask them, if you guys want to make more money. You know, this isn't rocket science. Do you guys, you know, well, customer service. I'm not going to try to tell them about metrics and old school. I'm going to get, do you guys want to make more money? Because if you create an experience. And I use Morton's as an example, and not the example of them bringing me a steak to the airport. That was not customer service. That was PR. We all know that. It's indicative of how they treat people, but that was not a customer service experience. I get that. My point being, though, is that when anyone calls Morton Steakhouse, for whether you go there 100 times the first time and you say, hey, they go, great, we'll see you at 8 o'clock on Thursday. They go, you're celebrating anything? Yeah, it's my wife's birthday. Awesome. What's her name? Her name's Kira. Great, we'll see you and Kira at 8 p.m. You show up at 8 p.m., they sit you down at your table, and in front of you is a menu, and on the top of the menu, printed out, says, Happy Birthday, Kira. You know what happens then? Kira spends the next 45 minutes Instagramming the shit out of that photo, and I can't get a drink. But who sees that? All of her friends. All of her friends who then want their husbands to take. We have become that society where Hannibal Lecter coined it in Silence of the Lambs. He said, we covet what we know. Okay, and never before have we had that opportunity to do so.
I've said for a long time, you want to win in social media, you have to create remarkable experiences people want to talk about. It's not about
and they don't even need to be remarkable. They don't even need to be remarkable.
That is a remarkable one. We put that on the menu and you say, happy birthday, that's remarkable. It's easy.
Right, that's the thing, it's easy. It's remarkable to them, but it's like, it was a printer.
Yeah.
But it's also, but here, KLM came out with a report that they generated $25 million in revenue from their customer service.
Oh.
That's a measurement. Do you think they're going to continue to do that, or do you think they're going to get rid of that process?
Right.
No. And that's where businesses have to think differently and have to think about customer service. It's a continuity. It's not just one transaction. It's a lifetime customer value, whatever you want to talk about. It's a continuous process of treating your customer well and then helping them through their whatever the next sales process is or using their product.
One level up that.
So guys, a question from Brian Fanzo. Ask them how can brands help the CEO better understand the customer when distance between the CEO and the user is huge? Frank?
Oh, go ahead, Frank.
I was going to say it's just a sad state of affairs. Ultimately, the customer needs to. You need to get the customer's voice into the CEO. It's the best way of doing it. And actually, there's a company I'm dedicated to, and it's kind of odd because it is a company that's troubled, and Peter brought it up. It's United. And you know why I'm dedicated to United? Because I've, over the years, exchanged about 10 different emails with their CEO, and he actually responded back very honestly, a very interesting conversation that it fascinated me, and I was thrilled that he would do those things. So you have to get the story to the C-suite. What I'll also tell you, though, is oftentimes it's already there. The problem is no one wants to say, I created this bad experience. So what happens is CEO questions something he sees or something that happens. Why is that? Oh, that's the lunatic fringe. That's not the reality, and that often is what they're taught and what they hear. And as long as that's the case, your culture's not going to get it there. So you have to get the CEO to hear the true story.
Yeah, Brian, we do something. We challenge people to do a CEO on support. Our CEO, Girish Mathrubootham, you could see him sometimes answering stuff on Twitter. But that's for him. That's how he keeps a pulse. That is where the rubber meets the road, is what are customers saying and what are the challenges? Is it a problem with the product? Is it a problem with our service and how we're delivering it, how we're interacting, or do they just not understand it? But that's his way of getting through. And so, maybe it's not an option for most organizations, but getting the CEO to take a support call or respond to an email or stuff like that. That gets you closer to the action.
It's just listening to the call, and the funny thing is, the problem is what happens in organizations, since I've worked in the operations side of things for a long time. I remember when I first took a role of quality assurance customer satisfaction at the bank I talked about before, Advana. We used to have to pick out the perfect call to share with the CEO. I will tell you, we would work 80 hours, or more man hours in a week to find the perfect call to share with the CEO. It was completely ridiculous. When that leader left, and we started sharing the business reality, here's what's out there, guess what? That's when things changed. They weren't changing up until then. And so we have to change this mentality, but that also requires us to change how we discipline things. So what do? If someone created something that's bad, we beat them up. And instead of allowing it to be a learning experience and saying, okay, you know what, that process was not what we intended, let's fix it, and not point fingers. Then it allows you to share the business realities much differently.
There's a great story about IBM, the CEO of IBM back in the 60s. A guy, one of his employees took a risk on a new idea, cost him $10 million, and it failed miserably. And he found out the CEO wanted to see him, so he prepared his resignation in advance and walked into the office, handed the resignation to the CEO. He said, I just spent $10 million training you. I just want to make sure you learned your lesson. I'm not going to fire you.
It's a great story.
I love that.
So we have a couple more questions and about a little over 5 minutes left. So I'll try to get through them. If I don't, then we'll try to answer them on Twitter. This is from Donna Peeps. So it's a great time to say shout out to my peeps. All customers aren't created equal. Talk about how you think about segmentation and service delivery strategies. Donna, you have stumped the panel.
I get a point. Frank, go ahead.
No, to me, you have to, you segment it, but you have to look at it from that customer's perspective. As we said earlier, if you're treating this person who's not really a VIP as a VIP, it's probably not the direction to go. I think that thinking through the amount of money that they bring in, I'm in the banking business, so how much money they may have with you, or the multiple accounts, if you have multiple accounts, it all makes sense. And most other customers would go, I get why they do that. So, basically, I always say, you should take the test to it of, if you're looking from the outside in, would you understand why a company chose that? If you can, then it makes sense. I think there's dangers if you try and segment in other ways, such as, this is the type of customer we're going after, and we're going to specifically treat this type of customer differently. I think you're on a slippery slope that's not as easily justifiable to other customers.
Oh, right. That's the concept that all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah.
I think that you can, again, if you start with a baseline that just doesn't suck, which is that we're going to help our that having a customer, having an audience is a privilege, not a right. If you burn that mentality into your employees, that having customers is a privilege, not a right. I joke. For me, it's exactly like wearing spandex. I have that privilege to wear spandex when I do a race, but other than that, it's not a right. I don't get to wear spandex. But if you teach your employees that having customers is a privilege, not a right, and that they need to be appreciative of those customers, then your baseline rises. And if your baseline rises, then again, we said this at the beginning, people aren't going to care that the super elite frequent global services flyer, gets carried onto the plane in a gold chariot because he's being treated decently for his $129 flight to LA.
I think that when you talk about levels of service, people equate level of service and time spent. Mm-hmm. And bigger customers are going to have bigger problems. You're going to spend more time with them. That's only logical. But if it's a matter of how you're treating them as opposed to how much time you're spending with them, then I don't think you're really going to see much people complaining about the level of service.
Yep.
Guys, I want to slip my own question in here, and then I'll end with one of the community's questions. What we have not talked about today, and I think we need to, it's on some level, is money. And I think if
you're giving us money, I'm for that.
And so what I want to ask you for is your money. I'm kidding. Not really. But I think that a lot of times, whether money is something that people are using as a way of treating it in a customer service situation. For instance, when you book a hotel room at a certain rate and you show up and that rate is higher, or your airline is, points aren't reflecting, or just any issue around money. It seems to be the area where people like to use that as I'll never touch that brand again. They charged me too much. Mm-hmm. I'll never try to do this with that. So I'm going to stop there and let you guys talk about how do you work in a customer service world around what seems to be one of the biggest challenges, I think, which is money.
I would just suggest, and I want to hear Frank's take on this, and everyone's take on this really, but I would suggest that what I'm finding, at least from the surveys that we do, is that there is not, depending on, let's say if you stay at a Holiday Inn, then you have a certain number of type of hotels that you go to, Holiday Inn-esque hotels. If you stay at Four Seasons, you have Four Seasons-esque hotels, right? And so in terms of the numbers and the pricing, thank you, mail guy just arrived, thank you. In terms of the pricing on that, I'm finding that customers don't so much care about the $4 difference between price here and price there. Rather, they want to know the experience was better. So the money itself isn't really, we're finding, anyway, money itself is not so much the issue in so much as the experience, how was I treated? The difference between an 8-ounce porterhouse at Morton's and an 8-ounce porterhouse at Del Frisco's might be $3.50. Who knows me better and greets me by name, that's going to determine where I go back.
What's ironic, Peter, is that you're holding a helicopter.
I literally, this is the ADD in me. I have a bunch of drones, different drones on my desk. I have the Chappie drone, and I have the heli. Yeah, I know. This is why no one ever wants to come to my office.
Money is something that's extraordinarily important. It's where trust is either earned or destroyed. And so you have to understand, we're passionate about our own money, and I don't want someone just reaching in my pocket and taking it from me. I want it to be done right, and I want it to be for the right reasons. I want the right value for whatever I'm looking for, and so you have to understand that perspective that your customers have, and then from there, I don't think any of it comes down to money at the end of the day. It comes down to trust. And if we trust a business, it's different. Where do a lot of regulations come from? Well, because you lost trust, and you did things. So if you do the right things, you don't have to worry about regulation. You don't have to worry about those things because you have the trust, and you have the trust of the world that's out there. Right. It sounds stupid, but it's simply do the right thing. Business is not brain surgery.
Yeah, I think brands also need to understand that the amount of money to them is not the same as the amount of money to their customer. So $5, is maybe a lot to the customer, but it may not be a lot to them. And you got to look at the long-term picture, the lifetime value. By complaining over or
and you can quote him on that.
The lifetime value. The only challenge I'll say on the lifetime value thing is I always get concerned about that because it's such a finite measurement. And the fact is, my goal is to increase lifetime value tremendously. So you're so dedicated.
All right, so let's look at future revenue from that customer. It could be including the fact that because we're on the look. Your book is about sharing. When I make my customer happy, they tell other people I've done a lot more for my brand than when I don't make my customer happy, and they tell other people.
Of course, and who are you going to believe? I always talk about the classic bar line. I go into a bar, I see a hot girl, I go, you don't know me, but I am awesome in bed. You should come home with me. Right? She throws her drink in my face, goes back to talking to her best friend. But if her best friend says, holy crap, that's Peter Shankman, I've heard he's amazing, at the very least I'm getting the girl's number, that's PR. And that's the new customer service. Public relations is no longer, PR is no longer public relations, it's personal recommendation.
And thank God you have a wife and a child.
Thank God I have a wife and a child. Thank you for bringing that up, Brian.
So, hey guys, we are running out of time. Unfortunately, I know there's a lot of questions on Twitter that I just didn't, we weren't able to get to, but I thought we'd just close with one very simple question. I was going to jump on some other ones, but I think we'll use this one as the closer, and then I'll close out. And here's the question: what is one thing that you think every company could do that is very simple that would change? And please choose something you haven't talked about before here, but something very simple that could change their customer service direction for most companies out there. Why don't we start with Frank? Why don't we start with?
Oh, joy! We just talked about PR a bit, and what I'll tell you is, as I'm analyzing a lot of these companies, almost their number one issue comes down to communications, and they're either setting up wrong expectations or bad treatment for their customer, any number of ways. Sometimes overly communicating in ways too. You want to fix things. Stop investing in all these tools and stuff. Not saying tools are bad. You may need that in the future. Go back to the basics. Look at the basics of your business plan. Look at the basics of how you speak to your customers. And I will also tell you is the way you speak to your customers inevitably winds up being the way your service department speaks to your customers. So you speak poorly to your customers in the press or any number of places. Guess what? That's where that same attitude comes in the service department. You're teaching them that, and you're doing it at a wholesale level. That's where I would first concentrate my efforts on most companies.
Yep.
Great. Alan?
I would think that the key is to get as much information about your customers as possible to the people who interact with your customers, so that they understand who it is on the other end. They understand, what other products that they know who they're talking to. The most frustrating thing for me as a consumer is when, and Peter talked about this, you call up and they don't know who you are, and then you give them some information and they still don't know who you are. Yeah. The information is there. Just unlock it and make it available to the people who are having those interactions.
Great. Good one. Peter?
I'm going to go really granular on this, and I'm just going to say that how about companies stop or start getting rid of the do not reply at addresses. And just make them real addresses. So, you know, we talk about United all the time. I'll tell you a story that drives me crazy about United, because I call them out when they're wrong. As much as I love them, you know, that's how they learn. They have they send me a survey after every flight, right? How was your flight? And it's like 5 questions. Usually fine, flight was fine, no problems, whatever. They say, what can we do to improve your flight? For 251 surveys in a row, spanning I think a year and a half, I have spilled out the same exact line when they say, what can we do to improve your flight? The same exact words every single time. On my next flight, please address me as Peter, Lord of the Skies. I don't expect them to ever do that, but it's been 251 surveys, and they've never once even so much as responded and say, hey, idiot, we get it. Stop it. That tells me they're not reading it. That tells me they're not reading it. And if they're not reading it, why am I even bothering filling this out?
But we've overkilled surveys, and
Exactly.
Why not just ask a simple question? How was your flight? And let them answer.
Exactly.
We now have technology that can even go through all this and rate it itself, and yet we don't do any of those things.
And so that needs to change. And
but now the cuckoo clock's back, so I think that's telling us something.
Yeah, it is.
Frank Lord of the Cuckoos.
We can always count on the cuckoo clock for a closeout of the H2HChat. So with that said, thank you everybody for being on this chat. I really appreciate it. We are going to be on again next Monday at noon. So please join us there. Again, thank you, Peter, Frank, and Alan, for a wonderful hour. And to everyone out there who posted some great questions, there's more on there if you guys have a chance to pop back into the tweeters and answer some questions. But either way, thank you guys. We will see you guys all again soon. And by the way, the launch of not my last book, my new book, Shareology, is coming out tomorrow. So if you would like to buy the book, please do so. It's on Amazon, and we are at just under 12,000 pre-sold books right now. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm excited to launch it tomorrow. So thank you guys, everybody, for this Shareology series. Thank you again, Freshdesk, for supporting us, and thank you from the thank you department of Brian Kramer. Cheers.